This video is packed full of spring home decor ideas, so keep watching. I'm Brandy, and this is Making It My Own DIYs. Welcome back.
Here are the supplies you're going to need for this project. I've got some little metal planters, which will be changed out later, so keep watching to see that. Some used floral foam, some thrifted ribbon. This little sign, Hello Sunshine, came from the thrift store. This is a Dollar Tree frame. This came from the thrift store. I believe it came from Michael's originally. This is just some scrapbook paper that I had, probably from the thrift store. Got some thrifted florals. I am loving the little wispy sunflower look this year for spring and summer. Okay, I'm going to take my metal ruler and just open up the back of this frame. I'm going to take off the back and the little papers from the inside and put those aside. I am going to save that little house paper form for another project. I'm going to lay my back down on here because we're going to be covering that ugly backing. So I'll just cut that out, and you can certainly use scissors for that if you would like. And I'm going to use my good old school glue stick. It's purple and then it goes on. It becomes clear as it starts to dry. I'm going to add that on the top. Trim up any little scraggly edges you might have left. And I'm just going to pull the back off. I'm not going to need this for this project, so I'm going to pull it off, put it aside, and take the little hanger section off. I use my wooden ruler to smooth it out, and we're going to place it back in the frame. Give me a thumbs up if you like this so far. Alright, so I'm going to take the back off of this because we want it to lay flat. And this did not come out as easily as I hoped it would, so I grabbed my pliers there and just pulled that off. Now this is raised. This is like a particle board, so I'm going to smooth that out so it lays flush with our surface. And I'm going to find my placement. A little bit higher, maybe in the middle, maybe a little lower. So I think right in the center of, right before the point up there where it goes into the roof and the bottom will be a good place for it. You could probably find a little picture like that at the Dollar Tree, that you can use to put right on the inside of that. I'm going to use some 70% alcohol. I just have that in a little travel spray bottle. I like to clean my items with that. You need to get all the oils and stuff off from your hands and from being, the gunk from the thrift store. And I've just used an old sock that didn't have a match. Kind of make it look a little bit nicer, even though you're not going to see the bottom. I'm just going to take that stuff off. And yeah, it's important to use a long-term, long-hold glue, which this Fix-All came from Dollar Tree, and then we're going to use hot glue as well. You want this to stand up firmly. So that's what I've done, and I've held it there for just a minute for the hot glue to get firmed up. And then now I'm just going to take some more hot glue, put it on the back, right along that edge, and I've got a little dowel rod here I'm going to trim down with my pliers, and place it in a thick bead of glue on the back. That's just going to give it a little more support. Now I'm going to take my floral foam blocks and just press them down in there. You can cut them. Excuse my whole shoulder there. I really like to throw it all into the projects, as you can see, and then start placing those in the foam. I like mine to look slightly symmetrical or slightly reflective of the other one if I'm doing two. It just seems a little more balanced to me. But you certainly don't have to do it that way. You can put it in however you like. Now these are not going to be replicas. They will not be twins. They will be sisters or cousins, if you will. So there we go. I'm using the yellow and the white, and I'm looking at the project, and I see that it's just too tall, and it's covering up my word. It doesn't look right. So I've got these little paper, I think they're seeding pots, and I'm just going to take my items out. I'm going to place them back into the little paper pots. If you pull them all out in one piece, lay them down gently, you can take that entire bunch and place them back down. This is how they looked before. See the difference? It's like an inch and a little more difference there. So it was a little bit too tall for what I needed, but I wanted to show you both options and how to fix it if you did what I did. Not a big deal. You can always take it out and start over. So that's what I've done here. And I like the placement of these. I think this looks really cute side by side. Again, with the fix-all, I'm going to add some of that on here. And then without overlapping my fix-all, I'm going to add some hot glue in a circle around that area. The effectiveness of the glue can be disrupted if you mix your adhesives, so don't do that. Try to give them a little breathing room there. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. A little around the center, and then some hot glue around the outside. 2 different glues because you want the hot glue to give you a quick grip, and you want that other glue to be there for a whole lot longer. Now, because there are areas between the flowers and the edge of the pot where you can see the foam, I'm going to go back in and just add some additional leaves and foliage that I had on the picks before I took them apart. I'm just going to add those here and there to cover up where you might be seeing those. You can see here, you can still see that foam, so I'm going to fix that too. I'm going to add a little bow, and this is just some vintage lace that I have, lace ribbon. Really simple bow. You can see how easily and quickly I did that. A little bit of this cotton, I can't find the word, string, from the Dollar Tree. Huge spool. It has lasted me forever. I'm just going to tie that in a double knot and make sure that my bow stays nice and securely there when I tug at it and cut on it. Trim it down. Okay, so here is our cute little bow, and see, having a tight knot in the middle keeps the entire bow from falling apart, and I can still slide that just a little bit. Rather than dovetail, I'm just going to cut these on a slant. That's what I like to do with these lace ribbons most of the time. A little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to add that to the open space on the top of the house. And just for extra little something cute, I thought maybe some buttons would be really cute. That is part of a cottage look and a country look, and I thought it would be really fitting with this. Plus, it is the colors that I'm using reflects the colors that I already have in the project. Could certainly use yellow, and I have you here some new videos coming up, so I hope you enjoy Dollar Tree and thrift haul videos and makeovers, because that is what I do here on this channel. We do budget-friendly DIYs and crafting so that you can have a unique look in your home without breaking your budget. We want to make things that bring you joy, and hello sunshine.
This is a compilation video, which means it has several different videos in it from any time from the beginning of my channel until now. Please enjoy.
So if you like blue, you're going to love this. This crock came from Goodwill. It's got a little farmhouse scene on it. It's cream colored with this gorgeous blue. Needs a little cleaning, but it's got a lot of potential. I have some ribbon that came from Goodwill. The little scrap of this one too. This is a silk. This one came from Dollar Tree. Really pretty gingham, blue and white. You're going to find that over with the regular ribbon. These are some thrifted floral picks, some greenery, and these beautiful blue, I don't know, they look like Gerber daisies maybe. Really pretty. The yellow center is a creamy yellow, and then these little wispy picks. Do not know what they are, but they are going to look great in this flip. So we're going to start by stuffing the bottom of this crock. We're going to stuff it with a little bit of paper that I saved out of an Amazon box, some things that we had ordered. It's really good for this. Crumple it up, stuff it in the bottom. You can use Walmart bags or whatever you have on hand. And then we're going to cut a piece of this foam to go in the top. This is just some leftover that I had. It was also something that was thrifted. And I'm just going to shove a piece down in the top. If you skip this part and you don't put the foam in, your flowers are going to kind of flop around, and you want it to have something to grip to. So I've changed the angle a little bit to show you what I'm doing. These flowers have been clipped at different lengths, and I did this intentionally because I want this to be sort of an asymmetrical arrangement. I'm just going to place these 3 in where they feel to me like they look right. And then I'm going to put this one pick that I have with the little wispies on it sort of in the back. And I'm going to add these green pieces in here and there, more toward the bottom. So it looks like our blue flowers are blooming and coming right off the top. I get so many flowers and picks and greenery pieces from thrift store. You just can't beat the price, and you can get some huge arrangements, you know, made from just a very small amount of money. So I'm going to put some of the smaller picks toward the bottom and the taller ones toward the back a little. Oh, I love that. I love the soft green with that. It looks really nice together. And so simple. To me, it screams out farmhouse in the simplicity of it. It looks like you could walk right off of your porch and pick this from some wildflowers outside. Okay, these also came from the thrift store. Random little pieces that I had, but I didn't like the dark green foliage to me. That looked a little too dark for what I was going for. So I'm just going to put a couple of these little picks in here without the greenery, just peeling all that off. Just a few. I don't want this arrangement to be as full as the last arrangement we did. I want to keep it airy and wispy and open so that we can see lots of light around it. Then I'm going to do is, I thought at first I might do a bow, but then I changed my mind, and I'm taking about 14 inches here of the 3 different colored ribbons, or styled ribbons. These are not wired at all. You don't need that for this project. And I'm just going to tie those around the neck of this container. They're just stacked. I'm going to leave a little, just leave the little tails hanging down. No bow. Very, very simple. Just a knot. Anybody can do that. I'm going to move this kind of off to the side instead of leaving it in the center. You can, once you get your ribbons pulled apart so that you can see all your little layers, you can, if you need to tack it down to your container with a little dot of hot glue, you can do that. I didn't do it for this. You can dovetail the ends if you want, or you can just cut them on a slant. And if you wanted to leave them just straight across, okay, bottom. Flip number 2. We are taking this one solitary napkin that I found at Goodwill, and this embroidery wreath, this thick wooden large wreath, and then I have some thrifted ribbon, and I also have some ribbon from Dollar Tree. I just decided to show you the measurement of this, and this is about a 14-inch, I think, loop. So if you know anything about these loops, you just loosen the screw and you take the top layer off. I'm laying my napkin on the bottom or the inner ring, and I'm going to center the top over that line where it was folded. And what you're going to do is push that down, tighten the screw a little bit at a time, and instead of having to iron out the napkin, if you will pull from both sides evenly, as you tighten it down a little bit at a time, you will have no wrinkles and you will have no lines left, no fold lines left in your napkin. This looks French farmhouse to me. What do you think? All right, and I'm just going to take my napkin, and you could cut this off at this point if this is something that you want to do, but I'm just going to take mine, roll it under, and then tack it down with a little bit of hot glue. I'm protecting my fingers because I will be likely coming in contact with that glue, doing it this way. You're just going to tuck and roll down to just try to make a neat little finished back. This is going to help protect if you put it against a surface. It will keep you from having scratches on your surface. You know, at first when I got this napkin, I was disappointed because I only had one, but then I thought, hey, when I saw it with that crop, I thought, yeah, I know what I'm going to do with that. So I've just taken a loop of burlap string, or excuse me, jute string here, and put it across the center of that screw in the middle of that square piece up there. Not all the wreaths had such a thick block up there, but in this case it's a good thing because it's going to give me some place to put the bow that I'm fixing. So I'm just going to make loops in this. It's like a denim wired ribbon, and I'm just going to make loops, and I can't remember exactly what my measurement was, but I think I have like a 7-inch across. So I have 3 loops on either side, and I'm cutting it off without a tail. So there it is, just the loops. I'm going to do the same thing with this burlap and lace piece. There are going to be 3 loops. If you turn it over on the side, you can count 3 and then 3. Cut off the excess here. Fold it in half. And then you're going to take your scissors, cut just through the wire and just a bit onto the fabric. I've seen this done by a couple of crafters, but the lady who comes to mind is Olivia from Olivia's Romantic Home. And she calls this her Olivia bow. It's called lots of things, but this is what I'm going to do with mine. So the thinner ribbon is the one with the burlap. It's actually not quite as wide as the blue, so I'm going to put it on top. It actually, for some reason, ended up being a little bit bigger. My loops did because I didn't measure it, but that's okay. Not going to be a problem. You'll see what happens, so don't get disappointed if you do something like that. That's an easy thing to remedy. I'm going to tightly tie this. You can use a pipe cleaner for this, or you could also use a zip tie if you needed to. But this piece of scrap jute works fine for me. Tying a knot in it, and I'm going to start by pulling out the inner loops of each one. And because you cut it, you'll be able to pull it away and out. And it helps for each little section of that bow to stand up nicely. It gives it a lot of leg room to stretch out. We're going to do this all the way around, and the same thing with the top layer. We're going to pull it out and to the side, and it's going to make a nice little pretty bow. Love that denim ribbon. I've had a lot of use out of it, and I'm going to miss it when it's gone. So now we're going to do the tails. Got a piece of the blue under and a piece of the burlap on top. Just going to look for our center point. Going to kind of bunch it up there. And then tie it also with a piece of jute. Always know that you have options. If it came down to it and you had nothing else, you can use a twist tie from a bread loaf. You know, we make it work when we craft. And I'm just showing you here how you can use your fingers to curl the edges if you want it curled. And see, this is where the block up there comes in handy. We're going to have lots of space to put our bow. You can do any type of bow you like. If you want something more simple, you could do like a shoelace type bow, or just a 2-layered bow. Maybe you would want to do a bow with just 1 loop on each side. So hold that down for a bit until it's dried. You can usually tell because the glue will get a little bit cooler. You won't feel the warmth from it if you're using your bare fingertips, but be careful when you do that. Always be safe. I'm just using a clamp to hold it there so I can go ahead and dovetail those ends without causing my bow to move around, and then, you know, pull it loose possibly from the glue if it's not dried. And you should be cutting away from yourself, not toward yourself. I don't know what was wrong with my brain today, on this particular day. So there you go. There are the pretty little tails. You can make them longer and curl them if you wanted to, but I didn't want anything to obstruct the view of my beautiful rooster in the middle. Got some remnants of chalk paint on my bow from the back of the, where I had sanded on another project. It got a little messy back there, but you won't see it. It's gonna be down, so I'm not gonna sweat that, right? We don't sweat the small stuff. I know you've heard me say that. So you're gonna put a good bit of glue there. Look where you're putting it to make sure that it is over the tails and that it is on top of the block there. You got it in the right spot, and then hold it down. I'm gonna use the clamp to help me out here. Don't worry, when things get smushed down, you can always fix it back. That wire and the bows make it so much easier for you to just fluff everything back out. And then once it's had ample time to dry and to set up, you can remove your clamp. And then your project will be complete. What do you guys think about these two flips? Isn't this great? This could be in your house all year long. I love it. It's especially going to be nice, I think, through the summer.
We're going to start off with a thrifted wreath that is in a house form. It is made out of twigs and just kind of tied together here with some twine. This came from the Dollar Tree. It's a little canvas. I have a variety of florals. These came from the thrift store. And the little roses as well. These beautiful pink tipped eucalyptus also came from the thrift store. Of flowers. I'm going to use some wire or some ties, clippers and scissors, and some hot glue. I'm also going to use a little bit of scrap ribbon. I'm just taking a good look at this bunch of flowers to see which ones I want to use. And I'm kind of going to go for what's going to match this canvas. And I really, really like the two-tone here. The foliage is fall themed, I think, but that's easy to take off. I'm just going to start by taking my picks apart and taking them stem by stem. I found that it's easier to work with this way. Okay, so now we're going to move on to what we're going to do with this wire here. I'm going to cut these in pieces. Excuse the shaking of my camera there. It's jointed to a table, which is just like a plastic kind of table, and it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so I'm going to try to find another way to mount that camera. So I'm just going to place these down, and because these are twigs in this wreath, it's really easy to just push these down in here. You know, I like to use my forms over and over again, so this way I can easily take it out. I use very little glue in this project as far as on the wreath itself. Now I'm going to have to find a way to attach my little canvas on here. I'm going to add some glue in the corners with a little piece of scrap paper. Be sure you guys give me a thumbs up if you enjoy anything that you see in my videos. It really helps my channel. We're going to go on and do this to all four corners. Okay, so I'm just going to bend these down so they're a little easier to fix here onto this wreath. Press the corners and just twist them around on the back, just like you see me doing here. And we're going to do that to each corner. We're going to take a few pieces that I clipped off to just fill in where we need a little bit of extra. I don't throw my scraps away. I keep them in a little basket. I have ribbon scraps, I have twine scraps, paper scraps, and I have some foliage and floral scraps. Even the little stems, you can use those again too. I'm going to move on to these two picks, and I only have two of them, so I think this is a good use of those. You can see that this is asymmetrical, that I have one side that's going to be a little bit more full than the other side. Just going to remove the gold toned piece. I'm just pushing this right through the twine and the sticks and trimming it down. I'm bending the heads of those flowers on the wire so that instead of facing up, they face out. And then I'm just pressing them flat into that wreath. Keep trimming where you need to. And then you notice here I'm going upside down toward the bottoms. This is because I don't want the stems showing. I don't want blank spots here, so this helps, and it also helps extend your floral arrangement downward, and I like that look. But again, do whatever is pleasing to you, however you like that. You could always cover up the ends if you see them with extra little pieces of greenery that you have. And any pieces of the longer picks that need to be held down, just make a couple of more of those little pins and press them down into your wreath, and they'll stay right where they need to stay. This is going to be an indoor wreath for me, but if you're going to put anything outside, be sure that you are binding it well to whatever wreath form you're using. Really glue it and really twist it down with your wires to make them stay. And see, here's some more little pieces I had left. I'm just going to go back in and fill in where I feel like they need to be. Any bald spots, any thinner spots, whatever looks right. I always try to look at my projects from every angle. I know you've heard me say that before. And then I just go back and add whatever it is that looks like it needs to be added to kind of fill it out. And see, that slides right underneath that little piece of jute. You can twist anything around with wire. You can twist it around so you can get it facing forward, pull them out where you can see them, put them in the back if you want to put it toward the back. I've found that florals are really pretty forgiving when it comes to that. And so I felt like it needed a little more. I've just clipped off another piece from another pick and just added that in the side. I like that it is kind of wild looking. I don't have a problem with the hang over and the way that it sticks out on the top. I mean, in nature nothing is perfect, or maybe it is perfect in God's eyes, but you know, to us sometimes it doesn't look symmetrical and we want to keep fooling with it, but I think this looks wild and rustic, and I like that. I think it's very cottagey with the colors and the feminine, kind of a feminine tone, I think, in this wreath. Simple little shoelace tie with this ribbon, which I love, and it came from Dollar Tree also. I've bought several spools and I am using it a lot. Just going to use a little hot glue right underneath the canvas and placing that down. And there you have it. What do you think about it? Do you like the color theme here? I've noticed Dollar Tree has a lot of these little canvases, and you can pretty much pick whatever color you want. They even have some beach themed ones which are really gorgeous. We're starting off with a pine swag, and we're going to add some of this burlap ribbon. These are some floral bouquets that I got from the thrift store. I got a variety of them, pretty much in the same colors. A couple of them are duplicates, and we're going to use those. Here's some more thrifted florals. This is Ashland. I think that came from Michael's or Hobby Lobby. These are thrifted as well. You know, almost everything I have is thrifted. So we're going to start off with this swag. I'm going to put the link up here in the corner so you can see the other project that I did with it and see how I put it down on that board. Here is some thrifted Eucalyptus Garland. I'm going to have several different pieces of that. These are some spring looking picks that I had that are kind of leftovers. Pretty much it's all thrifted. I'm going to show you how I chose to put this down. Now you can do it any way you want. And don't worry about that being pine underneath. Don't let that deter you from watching this video because we're going to cover every bit of that up. So I'm going to use my pine branches to wrap around the end of this garland and cut the little plasticky end off. Nothing there that is going to add any value to this. So I'm just going to cut it off. And then I'm going to kind of twist it back and forth from the left to the right, so that I cover up a lot of this greenery with the eucalyptus garland. We want this to look springy. I mean, you know, pine trees and evergreens, they're here all the time, thus being evergreen, but we want this to be more springy looking, more spring inspired. And so this is a really good way to take a piece that you already had, really stretch that dollar, and make something pretty that could last potentially all year. So I'm just going to keep adding this. Now when I got this thrifted garland, it was cut into pieces. There are a couple of strands that are whole and there are some that are cut into little pieces. So I'm just, with that in mind, I'm finding the pieces that look like they'll fit for what I need. You can use whole pieces, and you can certainly find floral garlands at Dollar Tree and at the thrift store. So just look for them. I always get mine off season. I've had this garland since probably November, and I've been hanging on to it. When I saw it, I saw the potential, and it is fantastic quality. I mean, it is really nice quality. So I'm just going to make sure that I have it, you know, kind of extending out the sides a little bit and laying on top of everything. I like to put the greenery down first and then start adding the florals, because I want my base to be nice and lush, and I love green. I love the greenery. So I'm doing the same thing to the bottom as I did on top. I know I'm a little bit out of camera. It's kind of difficult because my table is not very big in front of me. It's a long table side to side, but in front of me I don't have a whole lot of room to work, so kind of playing around with my monopod and try to get the camera where you can see everything. I know some people are really annoyed when they can't see everything, so just use your imagination. What I'm doing on the top, I'm doing on the bottom, and you can see here it's nice and full. Now I only have 2 of these, so I'm going to add one to the top and one to the bottom. And they're going to be going in opposite directions. It's almost like mirrored. If you imagine a line down the center of the arrangement here, then I'm going to do the same thing on both ends. It's going to somewhat mirror what's going on the top and on the bottom. So that may help you, because I know you can't see what I'm doing down there. Now you see. You can use any picks you have, and Dollar Tree has a variety of really pretty picks. Generally, I don't know if they have all of their spring out yet, but you know, I'm working right now with what I have, and these are things I already had, so I suggest that you do the same thing. Think of things that maybe you used at Christmas that could also be used in the spring. So I'm adding in these picks, and I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. One a little bit lower on the right than it is on the left, and etc., all the way down. I do have some pieces that are kind of clipped apart that I used in a wreath, and I'll show you how to fix that so that you can use that in a thicker piece. It's very simple, but sometimes when we're doing things, you kind of get overwhelmed, so you don't, the simplest things seem to escape you. You know how it is. But I don't want you to give up. If you're doing a project and you go, oh, I don't have that much greenery, there's no way I can do that. You certainly can. Use a smaller piece of garland. You could even use an old branch from an old Christmas tree. That would be that simple. Okay, so I'm going to take these 3 pieces, and I'm going to wind their wires around each other, just like this. And then now I have another pick. Now this one does not have like 5 or 6 pieces like the other ones, but that is okay, as long as we have a representation of that on both sides. I think it looks good. So just be careful if you've got really thin wires that you don't, poke yourself, hurt yourself. I know a lot of us are thin-skinned and we don't have a lot of collagen left. I'm almost 50. I'm not too far from that, so I know how it is. Plus I'm fair-skinned, and we tend to get boo-boos pretty easily. You'll see lots of my videos with band-aids on my fingers. But I kind of get in a certain mood when I'm doing this. So yeah, my mind goes to another place, and I just kind of go with the flow and throw all caution to the wind. Alright, I love these. These are really pretty, but it's a different texture, and I like that. I think that's going to add some interest, and it's kind of a little flyaway feature, and you'll see it again. I'm sorry, but there it is. I just overlaid it and put it a little bit further down, because we're going to work from the very tips toward the center with these pieces that I don't have a lot of. So I'm just going to move this up and show you that we're going to do the same thing down here. I just kind of, fluff it out just a little bit so it's all has a little bit of dimension in it instead of laying completely flat. And at some point, after you have wound these branches around the other pieces, you will have areas that are pretty tight, tight enough that you can just shove the pick in there without wrapping anything around it, and I love that. It kind of just hangs on to the rest of the stuff you got in there. So now I'm going to move on to my roses, and these beautiful peach roses. I'm going to put these in 3s because they make a bigger impact if you put them in groups. They are a little bit varied. Some are different than others. You could certainly do this with any type of flower you like, and you could use 3 different flowers instead of using 3 of the same thing. But like I said, I'm trying to use the things that I have, and because, you know, you can't go out and buy new things if you still have a house full of stuff, right? Or a craft stash that's big as a mountain. So I've got to work through the things I have. And I'm so glad, because when I find things thrifting, I pick them up because I really like them. So why not use them, right? I mean, why are we hoarding them if we're not using them, right? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next flower, the next type that I have here. And I don't have very many of these. I think these are dahlias. Are these dahlias? Some of you probably would know better than I do. And I'm just going to add those here and there. Then I have one stray white one. I'm putting that there. Then I have these little, they're like seed pods, or I don't know. It's just a bunch of different random little seedy looking things. Or maybe little flower buds. And then there's some other greenery that's got a little more of the bluish tint, and I'm adding those in. And I'll just continue to do this all over, filling in what looks right. The greenery that is similar, I try to keep with those groupings of the 3 roses. And then I have these little, they almost look like a berry. I put those in there. And then get down to my pieces that I only have one of, like this beautiful rose. And it's colored a little bit differently, but I really think it gives some visual impact, as well as this one. Very pretty. You got a lot of depth in there with the lighter and the darker colors. And then I have these really pretty white looking picks, and they were thrifted. You cannot get these at Dollar Tree. Hey, but Dollar Tree's stepping it up. They're charging us a little more money, but I believe the quality should be reflected. At least that's my dream and my hope. We can dream, right? Alright, so I'm just going to continue around, and see, I have one little pick here, and then I have another little one pick, and I'm just going to put that in there, because now that I've had my groupings in there, I can see where I need to add extra pieces, where it needs to be a little more filled out. And that's what you do. Now it's on this backing for a reason. It makes it easier to manipulate, to work with, to hang, and it also gives you the opportunity to use this as a centerpiece, or to hang it as a swag on your door or against your wall, which makes this very versatile. I absolutely love this. I love it. The colors are just perfect for my taste. Now I'm going to take 18 inches of this burlap.com ribbon. This is actually a linen and cotton blend ribbon, I do believe. And it is a beige and cream colored stripe. It complements this beautiful farmhouse piece perfectly, I think. I'm going to cut these into dovetails. Each one of these, also all 4 of them, and I've decided that there's so much going on with the flowers here, I don't feel it necessary to put a bow. You can certainly do that if you would like, but what I'm going to do is going to be a little different, but I think it still softens and complements the piece. So we're going to fold it exactly in half, and then we're going to go down a few inches. The farther down you go with your loop, the bigger the loop's going to be, and the shorter the tails. And I'm a little out of frame, but you see here, there's my loop, there's my 2 tails. I'm going to use a zip tie to close these off. You can use floral wire, pipe cleaner, if you get some strong jute, you can use that, whatever you want to use. And then just fluff it out a little bit. Just twist it around, fluff it out, and get it ready to be made into a pick. And this is where I'm just making sure that the size is right and that I like it. These are some little skewers that I got when I was out thrifting. I thought they would be good for crafting, and they're really good for these. Little hot glue right in the center of the ribbon, and then after it dries, I'm going to do each one like that. And then after they are dried and nice and tight on there, you can go ahead and decide where you want to put your little ends. It's such a pretty way, and you know, like I had referenced to before, a lot of people do not care for bows. They don't care for bows. But I think that this is a nice way to put that ribbon in there and really give you some more softness and accentuate your colors and really scream farmhouse. I mean, that stripe to me really says farmhouse. And then one final piece right here in the end. Just add a little hot glue to the end of the picks if you need to hold them in place. But for me, I've got so much going on in here, they stayed nicely. And I think this is a good color combination. What do you think about this beautiful piece? I love it. Alright, so give it a final look over, add where you need to add, take things away where you need to take things away. And then any of those little pieces of greenery that are left, if you don't want them to show, push them back down into the wreath, just like I'm doing right here. Very easy to do, just twist them and poke them back down in there. No sense cutting them off because you can use this again. So here we have it hanging as a swag that you could use on your wall or your door. And this is how it would look, very lush and full and beautiful. Do you like these colors? Do you prefer like pink, yellow, blue? What colors do you do in the springtime? I love this because they are warm colors, and for me, I love warm colors. I love that in my rustic home. It looks great with the wood doors and the wood trim and our wood floors. It's very warm and inviting. I really like it. Okay, so here we use it as a centerpiece. I've just laid it down here. You can add candles if you would like, but I've just put my candles behind it just to show you how pretty and full this would be just laying down. It's not very tall, so it would be great to be able to look across. Wouldn't this be beautiful for an Easter dinner or an Easter brunch? It's so cheerful and pretty. You could even add some Easter egg picks in there if you wanted to use this at Easter time. A lot of options.
Alright, I'm going to have my little handy clippers here. This is the basket that I've thrifted, and I have used this in other DIYs. This is an idea of the measurement, so you can use any type of a little basket with a handle that's flat. And this is what I've got. Got some fern pieces. You can get all of your greenery from Dollar Tree if you would like. Got some little wispy pieces and these beautiful irises. Perfect for spring. This blossom fern, I like the purple and white for this. We're going to start by cutting everything apart. We're not going to be plunking down a whole stem in there. We're just going to cut them into pieces. Very easy to do. This one, however, I am going to leave on the pick just like it is for now. Okay? And of course, I'm going to pick the prettiest side to come outward, and then one side is definitely going to be the back section. I'm going to push these right down in the center and kind of spread them out a bit. You know how irises grow. So I want to kind of let it have that same look. These are plastic covered wire, so I'm just going to bend these down. I got these at the thrift store, but you can get several different picks if you need to at Dollar Tree. It didn't have a tag, so I'm not sure where it originally came from. But I think Hobby Lobby right now has like 40% off maybe on their spring. I'm not entirely sure. You'll just have to check. But don't pay full price, y'all. We don't do that, do we? All right, now this is the back side of the basket, and I'm just going to take the pieces off because there's so many in here. I'm going to take the pieces off that are in the back, pushing everything else through into the front, so all that fullness is in the front. And then I'll be adding these back into here in the spots that I feel could use a little more thickness, I guess. A little more growth. So we're going to put those right in the front. So far, so good. And I'm just pushing these down in here. If this is something that you want to put on a covered porch, you could certainly do that, but you need to use glue to hold everything in place if you're going to do that. I like the idea of being able to use my baskets over and over, so I use very little glue when I have to. Otherwise, I don't use any glue for it. But most of my decor goes in the house anyway. All right, now here are the pieces of the beautiful little fern blossoms. And I'm going to pick those in here there. I actually did get these this year. So hopefully your store has some spring stuff out that you can pick through. I chose the purple and white because I really love the beautiful irises in here, and I want to be sure that I continue that color all through it. And besides, it looks springy to me. Definitely something you could use at Easter as well. The only two colors in these picks I saw was solid white and purple and white, but there may be more options. I love them. So pretty. Again, trying to keep the focus on the front and not the back. And when I place them in the back, I'm going to push them through the handle so that they are kind of protruding into the front section. And now, of course, I've got to add some yellow. So maybe those of you who enjoy Mardi Gras might actually like this also, because we've got some purple and some yellow and some green in here. I know if my sister's watching, she would probably be loving this. She lives in South Louisiana. In fact, she lives in Baton Rouge. So they're all up in the Mardi Gras spirit right now, as well as the people here that are in Mobile, Alabama. They're all getting ready and doing the fun stuff. I don't really do the Mardi Gras stuff, but I just never have. But I've been told it's a lot of fun. Okay, so continuing along with this spring bouquet. You can put on your door or put wherever you like it. I like to look at all sides and all directions to make sure that it is full and balanced all over, you know, meaning I don't want a bunch of holes or obvious blank spots in there. And look how lush and beautiful this looks. Now these little fern picks, I actually, y'all know, I get a lot of stuff from TEMU, right? If you don't want to do TEMU, there's so many other options. For me, it's very affordable, and I've been satisfied, so it's a personal preference. You know, it's a personal thing. So get your ferns. That's the main idea, is to just have some fern pieces if you want to do something close to this. But, you know, like I say, make it your own. So if you don't want to use fern, you don't have to. You could have stopped way back when you just put the irises in there. If that's what you want to do. Make it your own. Let it bring you some joy, okay? So I am just making picks because the end of these pieces are just wire, and they're not the kind of wire that you're going to be able to push down into the floral foam without them bending. It's a really light wire. So I'm just making my own picks, and you can see how I do it. I use little pick pieces from other florals that I've cut apart. I just save those, and they work great when you're doing florals to put down little, you can do little ornaments with those. You could do flowers, greenery, little signs. So I just keep them in a little box with my floral wire and my clips and things like that, and it works for me. All right, so now remember, we're going to feed everything through so it's kind of in the front. And I love that wild look. It's so pretty to me. So this is why I use ferns and a lot of greenery when I'm doing my florals. I love woodland, I love rustic, forest. It's just so pretty. It's just so springy and near and dear to my heart. Hopefully, pretty soon, the ferns will be growing in the on the side of our house, in the property that's got like a water in it. It's like a little bayou or something back there. Hopefully, we will get some ferns growing back there, and I can share that with you and see how those wild ferns look, because when they are growing in their full glory, they are stunning. They're beautiful. They're everywhere. It's really pretty. I mean, you know, if you dig that kind of thing. All right, so everything doesn't have to go straight up, right? No, it doesn't. Ferns grow in all directions, and I like to do a little something unexpected, of course. So I'm going to add these to the front and just kind of thread them back and forth in here and have some hanging over. And then here we have one little piece all by itself. We're going to poke that in there. Do not be afraid to move your florals around. They're on wire so that you can move them around, okay? Until you get the exact image in your head or in your heart, you can go ahead and fix it like that. Now, I am going to add some more. I want to add more of this yellow. It almost looks like goldenrod, doesn't it? Which, by the way, drives my allergies insane. But they look really pretty in here. And I love a little unexpected. I think Ramon at home calls them flyaways. I believe that's where that term came from. And they're so pretty and whimsical. I just adore them in my florals. Yeah, these are cute. I'm moving everything around till it is perfectly how I like it. I think I'm going to add one more thing in here. but I really do like it. So optional, you can add a bow. I love this. This meshy stuff came from Dollar Tree in the garden section. I've got different rolls and different colors. I've used them in other projects. And it can be, a lot of people question how to use this. They don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to show you what you can do that will fit perfectly into here. I'm going to make a double layer bow. So there'll be 4 loops in here. I'm just going to use a little piece of wire and just twist these together. And this is about probably 6 inches across, doubled over on itself. And then I'm going to take another piece here and I'm going to make a tail. I'm just going to fold it over on itself and then add the wire to it. If you can do this in your hands and you can leave your tails on while you're doing this, you can certainly do that. But in the beginning, I wasn't exactly sure what type of bow I was going to make, so I cut it off. But anyway, here we go. I'm going to cut these just on a slant because I don't even think you would notice a dovetail because of all the cutouts in the ribbon. It's kind of asymmetrical, so one of the little tails is longer than the other. We're going to reach inside that bow and pull the layers out. So now you will see the 4 layers, and it kind of reminds me of a 4-leaf clover, right? Now this is just the inside where I started, so you're not even going to see this. I want to be sure that it is all, that you can see the wood and the flowers through it. And now I can just take that wire and place it down into the foam, and then fix the tails. One down, one kind of going to the side by that fern, and that will complete the look of this hanging floral basket. I hope you like it. All right, y'all. We're going to take some greenery, whatever kind you want to use. I've got some little plastic branches. You can also get a branch from outside if you want. I've got my finger sander or sanding block or a piece of sandpaper, a variety of paint brushes. I've got some pink cloud paint. This is a chalk paint, very pretty. Pink sky, moss, and then these little birdhouses from Dollar Tree. This is a Melissa and Doug puzzle backing. These are great for working with. They are solid wood. We're going to start by sanding our piece down. This is going to be our background or our base piece, and you definitely need to make sure that you are sanding everything down. I get these at the thrift store. You know, people donate their kids puzzles and toys because they're missing pieces, which makes it perfect for me because nobody wants to pick these up. After everything is sanded, and I sanded the wording right off of there, pretty much, I'm going to wipe it down with a cloth, a dry cloth, by the way. Then I'm going to start painting. So I'll take the moss paint with a little bit bigger of a brush, and I'm just going to wipe this all over here. Now I'll warn you about a sponge brush. They absorb a lot of your paint, and they'll hold it in there, and you won't actually get all of the use out of it. So I prefer to use a brush in big spaces like this, so I'm not wasting a lot of paint. I'm going to go all the way into my corners and make a nice solid coat. Only one coat was required. We'll set it aside and let that dry, and then we'll start working on our little birdhouses. Now I picked 2 different ones. These are the only 2 styles I could find at my store, but we're also going to sand these down as well. Every edge, every side, every little area that we can sand, we will be sanding. All right, and when it's done, you can barely tell the difference, but believe me, it's a lot smoother. And then we'll go on to the next one. Go over all of the surfaces, especially around the little pickets there. They were kind of splintery. We'll take the back tags off, and I love it when the tag peels off smoothly, just like butter. All right, then clean it off. I didn't have any residue, so I didn't have to worry about that. So I've got my dry cloth, and I'm just wiping everything away. Now the new paints that I got, they had, I guess, settled in the bottles. So I'm just going to give it a good stir, and I also like to shake my chalk paint up as well. This one kind of gave me fits. So we're going to start with the little heart birdhouse, and I am going to start painting it. I gave each of the little birdhouses 2 coats, so you'll go ahead and know that. And what you don't see is painting the roof, that'll be a different color, and painting the front of the little garden area there on the birdhouse. I also go back and paint those the same color as the little birdhouse itself. So I'm going in here. Look at this beautiful, beautiful pink. It's so pretty. It's giving me the 1990s right now. 90s vibes all the way. Remember the lipstick we all wore in the 90s? Yes, that's what it's giving me. But it's very, very pretty. It's like a dark, dusty rose if I had to kind of tell you what it actually looks like. Sometimes it comes across differently on the camera than it actually does, you know, when I see it. Of course, I'm half blind and don't wear my glasses, so if that tells you anything. Anyway, moving along, I'm going to take this piece, which I pulled out of another arrangement. You can see it's still got foam on the bottom, but I will pick that off. And we are going to spread this out. I want to start in the corner and spread it outward so it looks like we have taken a picture of a branch on a tree. I'll use some very shallow staples here to just help me put this in place, just the main branches here, just a couple of little spots, so that I can be a little more free about where I put the houses when I get those ready. Okay, so I'm just kind of making sure I've got some areas that are flat where I can actually nestle those houses down in there. I changed my greenery over to this one because I think this dusty color is going to look better with the green I used in the background, and I'm kind of weird about my little matchy stuff. So we want this branch to look like a spring blooming tree, okay? So what I'm going to do is take these little leaves one by one. I'm going to cut all these sections in half, and I'll take them one by one, and I can add them anywhere I want. All right, now, once those are dry, you can see the roof is gray, any gray color you want or brown, and I'm going to put fences around the front. These are just some pieces that I've thrifted. The one that's white, I think is called Snow Fence. You can get those at Dollar Tree. The brown one, well, something similar to that at Dollar Tree. You're not going to get the whole roll. I'm going to kind of measure by leaning it against there, and then I noticed that from another project that I did with the little birdhouses that you can fold one picket down and it's the perfect width to go on there. Now there'll be a little bit of gapping, but that's not a concern because, you know, it's a fence. That doesn't even matter to me. But you see there how that fits? And it's wired so you can just easily go in there after you press it down, just clip those wires and you've got the perfect little fence to go in the front of your house. Now if you don't have the little fencing like this, you can make something out of those little thin craft sticks if you wanted, or you don't have to do this at all. You could just paint them on there or just leave it like it is. Then I thought, you know what, this is so cute with a little heart. I've got some of this, it's called reptile scales. It's like a foam bumpy row of stuff that I got, I think it was 90 or 95% off at Hobby Lobby about a year ago. And I thought, you know what, we're going to use that to trim it out. So now I've got my Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to put that down on the sides where it meets the sides of the house. Hold it down in place for just a minute, you know, make sure that it is gripped on there well before you go on to the other side so it won't pop off. Especially, like I said, it's on wire, and you have a little bit of space in between the house and the fence there. So you just want to be sure you hold it long enough. I mean, I edit that out. Nobody wants to see me hold something there for 2 minutes, right? No one wants to see that. So I'm just going to do the same thing over here on this house. I'm going to press that down into there and hold it in place. And then I'll go to the other side, put that in there, and hold that in place. Now you see I didn't do the bottom of the inside. That's not necessary. We're going to put something in there. We're going to put some greenery in there. Now I decided I don't want it to look like, I don't want the green to show through there, right? I want this to actually look like a little house. So if it's a little bird house, it would be dark on the inside. So I took some black velvet ribbon. It's just little scraps that I had. And I'm going to use that in the back so that it looks like there's some depth in there. So it looks like it's actually a little house that, you know, it's dark in there. You wouldn't see the little birdie's head right here anyway because they would be sitting in a nest on the bottom. So that's what I'm trying to emulate here. I'm just going to put it down, and then you can do the little sides too to make sure that it is height and dark there. And we'll do the same thing with the other one. Very easy to do. You can use felt here. You can use a scrap of material. If you like the little romantic look, you could even use a piece of lace here if you wanted to. Totally up to you. This was just my thing. All right, so now I'm going to kind of get my measurements just with my hands. And I know that I'm only going to do one of these little roofs in this little technique. I like the lines of the other roof, so I'm going to leave that one alone. It's going to be a little more rustic, and this one's going to be a little more cottagey romantic. So I'm going to cut off the pieces that I need, trim that one piece down so that they overlap, or you could cut them at a slant so that you get a, the right angle, but this works for me, so that's what I did. This is how my brain was working that day. Let's just put it that way. But you do what you need to do to make that fit. Then I'm going to take some Adirondack white paint. This is chalk paint because it's thicker, right, and it dries faster. And I'm going to go over the foam. I'm making sure that I get in between each of those little, they're actually supposed to be scales, right, reptile scales. And then on the insides of each of those little places and on the outside. So anywhere I can get it, I'm putting it on there, except the back, because I don't want anything getting in between this glue and that foam. You've got to lower your temperature down on your glue gun to the low temp, because you don't want to melt the foam, right? It's just foam. We don't want to melt it. And then we're going to just go ahead and put those trim pieces on there. I love how this looks with the little white fence. Y'all don't have a cut on my hand. That's actually some paint from the other birdhouse, so nobody be in distress. I'm totally fine. Now mine wasn't dry all the way, but you let yours dry all the way, okay? So now you can start kind of putting your tree together a little bit, just getting a little bit of greenery on there before you put your houses down, because they're drying right now, right? We've put them aside, they're drying. I definitely want to cover up my staples. I do not want those showing, so you start with that. I don't want to lay these flat down and completely put them flat against that board. We want to give it dimension and movement by having some of it glued down and some of it kind of floating or standing away from that backing. These are the things that you can do that just make your crafts and your creations have a little more interest, But by all means, make it your own. All right, so I think I'm going to put the little pink house. He's out on a limb over here. That's why I named this Out on a Limb, because these houses are out on a limb. And since it's flat on here, I'm just going to add a good bit of glue on the back and press it down. I don't want to get any glue where that fabric is right there, because I don't want it to come out of the fabric and make a big nasty mess. You'll get that ghosting look. You'll see that white in there, and I don't want that. Then, since I know the space for the house, I can go ahead and add a few more leaves here on the bottom. And then I can go ahead and find where I want to put the little rustic neighbor. We're going to put him a little bit up north. I love the idea of the unexpected. So actually having this extend over the top of the backing is perfect. I love that. And I like that it is sitting between two branches but supported. Okay? Now because it is standing away at the top, we want to make that balanced so that there's not a gap or it's not tilted. So I'm just going to use some of these little foam, I don't know what you would call these, foam tape. And they'll give me a little bit of lift. And I'm going to do 3 of these. They have sticky on the back. They have sticky on the front. You just peel the little pieces off, and you can get something very similar at Dollar Tree. And this will lift it up enough and help secure it on the bottom. So I'll get my placement right for that, kind of moving my branches. This is why we didn't want to staple those in place yet. And then I can press it down right over where I place those adhesive squares. Why can I not get that word right today, y'all? All right, so it looks good. It looks really good. And now we need to add a little hot glue right here. And because those pieces are like a foamy kind of squishy thing, they're a little forgiving. So you can actually lift up a little bit and put the glue right underneath that part of the house. I'm also going to add a little glue on the branches so that it actually looks like its weight is supported there. I added another staple over here once I got my placement right. And then I'm just going to start adding my leaves here and there. I won't let you, be subjected to watching me put down every leaf, but I can kind of transition a little bit to show you the progress. And this one is kind of standing out. They're hanging over the edge of the backing, and I think that is so sweet. I really like that. If you got some little faux birds, you could always put those there if you wanted to. You see how long it takes to hold that? Yeah. All right, so on the back, this is a simple little hanger that we're... Here is a little piece of scrap dogwood that I have. Got one more pick of this. Very pretty, very springy. I have some pipe cleaners, and they are the same color as my wreath form. My ribbon. This is just the thin kind of ribbon that I got on clearance at Walmart. This one is from Walmart, but I'm going to switch it over and you'll see that shortly. And then 2 different color rolls of burlap. They're not wired, of course. This ribbon that I got at the thrift store. Very primitive looking, right? But the green is beautiful. So here is the wreath form that I got from Dollar Tree. It is a 14-inch wreath. I am going to start adding my pipe cleaners down first because this is our support for our wreath. We have to have something to hold our pieces together. So we're going to go on the inside and then on the outside. See, we're going to the inside 2. Going to go 2 now. There's 2 rows in between. 2. And then the outside 2. This is going to give a little more support when you're using burlap rather than using something thin like deco mesh. This helps hold everything firmly in place because it's a lot more to handle when you're using burlap than it is that thin deco mesh. Alright, so now we have all of our pieces there, and I'm going to layer these 2 pieces. Now right now you can see the dark is on top and the cream is underneath, but I'm going to flip it over because of the way they roll. And I want them to easily roll as I am pulling my sections up. Okay, so now they're flat down with the rolled section on top. And I'm going to take my measurements. We are going to be using actually 10-inch, that's 10-inch. 10-inch sections. I'm going to start by bundling these in my hand, measuring down, and getting an idea of how much we're going to use. I always like to do that first because sometimes I can use a little bit less. And in this particular wreath, I probably could have saved myself by using smaller sections, but it is such a full and beautiful wreath. I think you'll agree that it was the right move to put this many sections at this length. Okay, now I'm pinching it up just like you would when you use deco mesh, and pushing it to the next one. So we're going to do inside and then outside, inside and then outside. When you use an entire piece of pipe cleaner on here, you have plenty of room to get the thickness of that burlap in there. All right, now one of these pieces or rolls of burlap came from burlapfabric.com, and the other one was one that I thrifted. So that, and I do not know how much is on either one of these rolls, but if you do the math and you think, okay, there are 12 sections that we are doing poofs in, and they are 10-inch sections, then that's 120 inches, then that's 5 feet. Wait, no, the math is wrong. Oh, the math is so wrong. This is why I don't do the math. But you get the idea. You can do your math and get that. All right. So I'm going to continue around this entire wreath. You can see what I'm doing here. When you're first doing it before you fluff it out, it actually looks like everything is on one rung, but it's not. It's back and forth, back and forth. So we're back to our original spot now, and we're going to measure out, but we're going to go over an inch because we need to be sure that we have enough to wrap inside there before we cut anything off. Now grab some very sharp scissors and cut this burlap. So we got that extra little inch, nothing's pulling out, and it is tightly placed in there. All right, so now you can see all of our little poofs, and we can start to separate them. So cream and white, then white Well, cream and white, good grief. Cream and beige, and then beige and cream. Cream and then beige. Beige and cream. So you're going to do this back and forth all the way around so it looks like they are kind of woven around each other. Okay? And this is what I mean by you could possibly have used either less sections or you could have used shorter loops or shorter bubbles. You know, you could have done it that way. You're going to go all the way around and look at the fullness in this wreath. I love it. But you can make it your own, okay? It's so full already and we haven't even got our ribbon pieces in yet. So we're going to grab those ribbon pieces and we're going to do 10-inch pieces. And I'm actually going to be cutting 24 pieces of the 10-inch because we are going to be using 2 in each bundle of this color ribbon, okay? That's how much I like it. Yes. And this is not wired. None of the ribbon that we're using is wired. Alright, so we're going to cut all of our pieces, and you see I changed to like a deco mesh looking ribbon over there. It's kind of a plasticky ribbon. And then I'm going to cut everything into dovetails, except the cream color one on the bottom. Alright, lots of dovetails. This only takes a little bit of time. Put on a podcast, watch a movie. This is so easy to do, okay? Get all of those cut, and I'm just going to do slants on the end of these because some of us can't see and some of us don't have the dexterity in our hands to do tiny, tiny dovetails. So we'll just cut them at a slant. We won't worry about it. All right, now we're going to start by making an X, and we're going to put a piece of that other ribbon there, that meshy ribbon. We'll just call it mesh ribbon, and then we'll put this little piece of ribbon on top. Okay, so we have 2 X's, right? We're going to squish them up, hold them tightly and squish them into the center, and then you can just hold it in between your fingers. I'm going to push it down into the wreath while I wrap it with the pipe cleaner. Pushing it down because I want it to be tight. When you start fluffing these wreaths out, like, you know, that are really got a lot going on in them, you have got to have them fastened down tightly or you will pull something out. So I'm going to give it even an extra twist of that pipe cleaner for good measure before I trim it off. Alright, now you can put all these together and put them on and then cut off your wire, or you can do one at a time. So same process here. As long as I've got the bigger ones on the bottom and my smallest on the top, it doesn't matter which way you do your X's because they'll be fluffed out and they'll look like individual little pieces. Alright, you see how I'm pushing it down and then pulling it tightly? I have had pipe cleaners to break on me before, but because I thrift so much, I'm not entirely sure what brand has done that. But recently, I haven't broken any. Alright, so we're down to the last one now. You've seen me do a few and we fast forwarded and now we're down to the last one. I'm just going to do the exact same thing as I would the rest of them. Tight, then I'm going to twist it 2 or 3 times, tightly, 3 times. And then we can just cut that piece off. And I'm just using little jewelry cutters here, but you use whatever type of pipe cleaners, pliers that you have, or you can use, you know, if you have some kitchen scissors that you use, something like that, that can cut the wire and not destroy your blades, right? Alright, so now we're fluffing. We are fluffing. I am going to fluff out that bow, and because the ribbon is so thick on here, and because the deco mesh looking ribbon is has its own little body, they'll stand out there pretty much on their own. They kind of support one another and stand outward. Isn't that something you could say about life too? You support each other so you can really stand out. You want to get those good people around you in your life, right? Those are the good people in the comment sections who watch my videos. We don't deal with the negativity. We support each other. We stand up and support one another so that we can be who we truly are. Alright, so I'm just going to add the dogwood branch right into the middle. Very easily done. I know that I want to add a little bow here, but you can leave this out if you would like. I'm going to take that same ribbon from before that we used, And I'm just going to fold it over on itself. Really, really easy. You could see what I'm doing there. You make the awareness sign and then you mash them together in the middle. Just squish them up. And then you can just trim off the tails. And take a piece of jute. I'm going to use my jute. And I'm going to tie it to the front. So what you're looking at now is the front of it. Because we're going to layer some more pieces on it, we're just going to go ahead and leave the tie in the front. Make a double knot so nothing slips when we're fluffing. Y'all know I'm a fluffer. You know this. I encourage you to fluff as well. Now we'll take our next layer. This stuff is so clingy. This also came from the thrift store. I love to use it in arrangements, but it is just like deco mesh and it clings to everything. It clings to itself, it clings to the other ribbon, it clings to your shirt. It's, you know, it doesn't discriminate. Now I'm going to tie this one down right on top. It's just layering it, right? And we're just tying it right on top with the same exact cord. We're going to take the little one and do something a bit different. I am going to make some. This is going to be actually 4 loops in this one. So there's 4 little loops. I just folded it back and forth on itself. You cut a section off so that we have tails. I'll put it down right in the middle. We won't worry about fluffing yet. Just make sure there's 2 loops on one side, 2 loops on the other side, and a tail on each side. And then we can tightly tie it off. And what I was doing, pulling those loops up, was just making sure that it was equal on both sides. All right? So now, those little pieces, if they had wire, they would stand out much better, but they don't. So we kept it very small, and we'll see what it looks like when we fluff. You can go ahead and cut off that piece because we don't need it anymore. And we can do something with these tails to make them pretty. And I'm just going to do a slant cut. I'm not even going to worry about dovetailing this part. Same here, but I want this one to be a little bit shorter than the background. It's just a very chunky little sweet bow. It's not going to be very big. And then these pieces we're going to cut off even shorter. And fluff, 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 fluff. Fluffy, fluff, fluff, fluff. You could do 5 loops here, you can do 2 loops here. You know, and I'm self-taught. I know some people like to come in here and correct me on my technique and my method, but I think at this point, what I'm doing works for me, so I'm going to just keep doing it that way. I'm not a professional. I don't claim to be one, but I like to show you that if I can do it, you can do it. So I'm going to just take a piece of thin wire and I'm going to use that to wire it to the wreath. Then I'm going to push this down, this dogwood piece down, the branch. I'm trying to weave it through the frame underneath so the bottom has a little bit of support. So that's what you see me doing, or struggling to do. And then I am going to take wire to hold that in place up top. Do a little fluffing. I want all my flowers to come up to the front part. I don't want any bald spots. And then I folded my wire in half, almost like a bobby pin, and going over the wire. And then again, they come on wired branches. They're not plastic, they're actually wired, so I can move and push these around so that I get the fullness I like and that they are oriented in the direction I like. I want them all to face outward. There she is. And you can just hang it right off of your whatever type of hanging tool you have, if it's a strip or whatever. And here are the 3 projects. Oh, our little fairy friends have found the section over there. They found a little housing. So here is the basket floral with the beautiful purple irises. Don't they look pretty with that white and yellow in there? It just brings that darkness up a little bit. I love it. If you have not already subscribed, I would love it if you could do that right now. Be a member. If you want to be a member, you can find the information in the description box below. Watching the videos as a viewer and subscriber is completely free. If you've enjoyed the content in this video, I would love a thumbs up. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job, that you're enjoying what you're seeing over here, that you're leaving with some inspiration, and it helps me with further videos. Look at our little fairy friends. They're just sitting there. All I did on the inside is add a little moss and then a couple little sprigs of, you know, extra greenery that I had. And we have our little blooming tree here with our happy little fairies. And since they're not glued down, they can just fly away whenever they get ready. If you have some little foam birds or little miniature birds, you could put those there if you would like. I think that the wreath is gorgeous. Hey, y'all, want you to know that you're not alone. And it's a good time to say this to you because sometimes we need a reminder. Sometimes we feel like everything is about everyone else and we just get left out. We don't feel like we're good enough. But I'm here to tell you, you are. Thanks for watching. So these crafts were actually inspired by this ribbon that I found at Goodwill. I think it was last year. They have planting essentials on there. I've got a little watering can and a bucket. And then some tools, little gardening tools. We'll also be using a wreath base. This was thrifted. It has been used before. It has a wire backing, so it's only really like half of a wreath. You can see the size there. And then we're going to put the part with the glue on it toward the top, with the bulk of the glue. And then I'll show you what you can do to get rid of the little sections of glue when you buy the thrifted pieces. You're going to use some type of a tool, heating tool, and then carefully on low temperature so you don't make a fire, you're going to get right on top of that hot glue, and then you're just going to get like a wooden stick. It'll cling to that wooden stick, and you can pretty much push it through there or take it right off the wreath. Now we're going to put the area that's got a lot of glue on it to the top because we're going to have that covered up. I've got some dark brown paint. I'm going to put it down here on just a little scrap of cardboard and then grab a little sponge brush, a little foam brush, and start putting that brown paint on here. I'm not using antiquing wax this time because maybe you don't have antiquing wax, maybe you're a beginner. So we're going to use something that looks like it is maybe rusted, definitely dirty and aged. So a dark brown pretty much looks like soil, right? It ought to do the trick. And you can pounce this on as heavy as you like, as light as you like. Set it aside and let it dry. And then move on to the other tools. You're going to put it all over, and when you do a little rake, you need to be sure that you get in between each of the little tines. And then we'll start working on the bucket. Now the bucket is already a different finish than the watering can. So I'm just going to try my best to kind of cover that up by dirtying it up and just smearing a light amount all over here. Just going to take that high shine down to make it look like it's been in the garden for a while, right? This is an experienced gardener maybe that has had these tools. And then for this galvanized look, I'm going to go back over it with brown too, just pouncing some little dots over there. Any area that has a seam on it or where the pieces connect, certainly concentrate some of the color down in those spots because that's where dirt would normally collect, and that's also where rust would start to form, would be around the joints of those pieces. Be sure that you get under things and on the inside of handles as well. You don't have to get on the inside because we're going to do something a little different. And then you can set aside, let it dry, and then we'll start working on the next layer. Be sure that your layers are dried in between. And pretty much these aging techniques you can use on a lot of rustic decor pieces. So just take this knowledge if you don't like the decor and use it on other things you do like. I'm going to do the same thing here, but this time I'm going to work mainly on this bucket around those seams, right around the edges where they would be welded together, or however they do metal pieces. I'm pretty sure it's welding. You go through here and tap it all down in there, and in the little gaps that are in between where the ends meet or the pieces meet, be sure that you get right in those spaces too. If you can't get it with your sponge brush, go ahead and grab a brush with some bristles and push it into those spots. And you'll see me do that in just a minute as well. Be sure you get your handle for your bucket. Now these were thrifted, but you can get the little white buckets from Dollar Tree. Now you can see I'm pushing the paint into the little cracks there. You can get the little white paint buckets from Dollar Tree. Maybe you can get the galvanized buckets possibly. And the little watering can actually came from Hobby Lobby, but this time of year, I think the spring goes on sale for like 40% off, so you can probably find that there again. It had a little tag on it and I took it off. But this didn't have a tag. Okay, now I'm gonna take that and I'm just gonna stipple, stipple, stipple all over the place and get that in there all over it. So you see the same idea here. I'm making sure that I kind of take that silvery metallic shine down a bit, and here going on the inside of the handle. And then you can make this as thick as you want. Let it dry in between layers, and then you can add more if you want, or you can stop wherever you like. If you like the metal look without any of the aging, do it that way. Totally up to you, but I think for rustic or farmhouse, this aged look really does the trick. I'm going to take the brush and go back over this one too, pouncing, pouncing, and then be sure you get any of the metal pieces where they attach to the handle. And then all those little spaces that you couldn't get to with the sponge. Also going to take a little of that paint and darken the handles to make those look aged as well. We want the whole piece and all the pieces to look like they are all from the same gardener or the same little gardening shed. Maybe this is from Mr. McGregor's garden. Y'all know who Mr. McGregor is? Tell me in the comments if you know who that is. All right, so now I'm just going to take some pewter gray because I was not happy with the way that this still looks shiny underneath. And I'm just going to kind of, I say stipple, what I'm doing, if you're new, is just pouncing this up and down. I'm using a brush that does not have a flat end. It almost looks like it would be a stencil brush, but it's not because the end is not flat. It has a bit of a taper to it, but it does really good for these projects, and to me that makes so much of a difference. I'll go back over and I'll just add some here so I can get the tone kind of evened out a little bit. But who knows? Maybe the watering can's older than the pail. Who knows? But you can see the inside of the watering can and the pail are still clean. So I'm going to take some decorative shred that comes from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to put it on the inside of these buckets. You know, on the bucket and the watering can. Now I'm using brown just because it's an organic kind of color and matches what I have going on here. It's just to fill it up. It's not to signify dirt or soil or leaves or water. If you wanted it to look like water though, I guess you could use some blue shreds in the pail, whatever you like to do here. And if you would prefer to just paint it on the inside, you can do that too. I like the idea of adding the paper shreds and the hot glue because it's going to give it a little more weight, because we're going to hang these down from the middle of the wreath and I need it to have some weight to stay in place. Simple enough, right? So now let's work on the bow. And y'all, I fell in love with this bow. All right, I am going to be using 2 pieces of the white and 3 pieces of the black. I'm not going to use the green. I thought I might, but I'm not. And then I'm going to use some of this. It's like a ribbon, but it's actually like a deco mesh texture, a plasticky and fabric texture. And I'm going to thicken up these pieces of ribbon because they don't have any wire on them. So they're going to be a bit floppy for the size of bow we're going to do. So you can accomplish that by putting it on a stiffer background, and that's what I've done. I added some hot glue on here, and I'll show you again how we do it. On the back side of the pretty ribbon, I'm going to add squiggles because it covers more surface with less glue. And I'm going to put that down and use a little rubber spatula to pat it all into place. until I have 2 of the white and 3 of the black. Okay, once it is cool and dry, I'll start forming the bow. Now this is going to be done sort of like a funky bow, but we're going to sort of modify it. And the length of this ribbon is about probably 2 feet, if I had to guess. I didn't get that measurement for you, so I do apologize for that. But I'm going to take it, fold it in half, and then hold it in my fingers, pinch it together and hold it between my forefinger and my thumb. I'm not going to move anything once I get it in my right hand. It's going to stay right there. My left hand is going to be doing all the work. And I am right-handed, by the way. But if you need to do it with the other hand, you certainly can. I'm going to alternate the white with the black ribbon, going back and forth. Okay, so white, black, white. I'm going to add a black. Then I'll go back and add a black in front of the first white. Okay, we're going to do it halfway up. See, halfway up, pinch it up. Now I'm going to make this one. This just takes a little practice, but I love the bow that you can get from this. I'm going to call this a modified funky bow because I know that you use a similar technique for the funky bow, but instead of having all those extra tails, we're going to have half the amount of tails we normally would have. Okay? So now I've still got it in my hand. I have not let go of anything. I have not put anything down. I'm going to take a zip tie. I'm going to make sure that it's facing the correct direction. Slip it in my thumb. My hand is still in the same place. I'm going to slip it through with my left hand and then start pulling on it to get it straight. Now you can let go of it. Cut off your tail. So now we have 5 tails and 5 loops. I am just going to cut mine in a slant, but you can certainly go ahead and cut yours in a dovetail if you would like. Leave them a little on the long side until you get them on your wreath. And then if you would like to trim them down some, you can do that, and I will show you how. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over and put the pretty side of the bow toward the table. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they flip back up, but when you get them back in place, they're going to be absolutely fine. And the stiffer the fabric of your the ribbon pieces, the easier it is to make this happen. And also, if you have something that's wired, that helps as well. But you can do it without wire, and I'm showing you how to do this without wire. So now, instead of putting them all the way out, I'm putting the loops at the top and all the tails on the bottom. Then I'm just going to kind of fluff a little bit on that bow to see what I like. And I think this is going to be perfect. I'm going to get my placement here, right across that glue. Remember that messy glue spot that was still up there? And then I decide, you know what? This is showing a little bit too much, so I'm going to tie it off and cover it up. I'm going to take that bow with a piece of jute, tie it around the middle. I keep a big roll of jute in a box that has a hole in it, and I just pull out what I need and cut it off. I know y'all probably seen that before, how I made my little jute storage, and it keeps it from getting tangled up, which I love. Okay, so then I'll flip it over. I've tied it off. Now that's all covered and it blends in nicely. I'm going to make sure those tails are twisted. The pretty side is out. And you can keep moving those around, and you're going to have to until you get it locked into place, of course. And that's going to look good up there. I like the proportion. I'm going to take a piece of floral wire and then use it like a bobby pin to go right across the top. Feed it through the back of that frame. Just take your time with this. You can see where it hangs out in the back. One is under toward the bottom and one is more toward the top, which works perfectly for what we're going to do here. Because we're going to, after we've got it twisted, don't cut it off. I'm going to take a little loop. This just came off of some type of a curtain thing. Or it may have been from a shower curtain. Not entirely sure. But some type of a little ring. You could even use like a pop top, like a Coke top. And I'm going to just twist this all the way around it. It is going to be hanging in the center of that bow. to the back of the wreath, so you won't be able to see the mechanic part of it. After I've twisted it in place, make sure nothing comes loose. Now it's going to hold our ring and it's going to hold our bow in place. So this is how we are looking so far. Now we're going to take the watering can and the pail or the bucket and take a bit of the jute. And we're going to be attaching these by tying them in a few knots onto each one. Hey, come check out my new videos on Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. I'll see you in the comments. It's easy enough to do those ties, just a couple of little ties so nothing comes loose, then you can trim that off. And it should stay in place perfectly. This time I'm going to go around the handle up close to the watering can itself because I want this to look like it is pouring out. That's why I said you might want to use blue or white or something to signify water if you wanted to do that. Totally up to you. Whatever your taste is, make it your own, right? That's what we do on this channel. We make it our own, and we do it in a way that we're not spending a ton of money so we can still have joy. Now I'm just going to string these pieces through here and adjust them. Before you tie the knot, you can adjust them. I'm going to put the bucket on the other side. Go right through that little ring that we tied on. And then when you get the placement you like, you can go ahead and tie that in a knot. And I like the idea. Now this looks like it's pouring into the bucket. It just naturally kind of fell that way, so I thought, hey, we're going to go with that. I like that. Now you can take those long tails and you can trim them up in any way that you like. I'm trying to make sure that since I have black, white, or black, white, black, that I have them spaced out on the wreath. And now I'm just going to take these tools, which I know I'm a little high, but I'll show you here in a minute what this is going to look like. This is how I want to place my tools on here, but you can put them anywhere on the wreath that you like. Grab a little more of your floral wire and attach this down to the wreath. The floral wire is going to really hold it tightly on there so nothing falls off. And then you can go back over it if you want to with a little bit of that jute, which is what I did, just to give it a nice look. That is certainly just my taste, and that is not something that you have to do. So I'm attaching it around the metal part of each one of these, and then up the handle I'll also attach it here so nothing flops around and falls off when you get it on your door. Now I do recommend, since this is a flat back wreath, that you don't put this maybe on a screen door because it's not going to be pretty on that side, and in a window it's not going to be beautiful on the other side. But you can put it on a wooden door or up against the wall and it'll be great. So now I'm going to take about 12 inches, 2 of the white and 2 of the black of that same fabric, and we're going to make a regular funky bow to go right on the bottom off to the side. So now for a regular funky bow, or just a funky bow, you're going to fold it completely in half like this, and then right in the center squish it up. And again, I'm holding it in my hand like I did the other one. Cinch it in the center, push it together in your hand, hold it tightly. So black, white, and then black. So the bow has 5 loops, just like the one on top. Still in my hand, never letting go. I'm going to grab the zip tie, same process, wrap it around. Going to make sure my loops are even up there. And then I'm going to pull this tightly. You can cut off your excess and start making that little bow. Now because we're using less fabric, we don't have to have anything to go underneath these pieces of ribbon. They're going to stand up fine because they're small, right? They're smaller and they can hold their form a little bit better than using the bigger. The bigger you get, the more floppy it gets. So if you do a small one, you can do it just like this. So if you do this wreath on a smaller scale, then you wouldn't even have to use that wiry looking deco mesh that's on the top. All right, so for this one, we're going to flip all the tails out, and then we'll have twice as many tails as we have tops or loops. And then you can decide if you want them going all in one direction or if you want to kind of splay them out underneath. Totally up to you how you do this bow, but typically it looks like an octopus, where the head of the bow is all on the top and all of the tails are spread out underneath it. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying with that? I've done this particular type of bow about a quadrillion times on my channel, so you can definitely see these again in other videos. And the more you make these, the more you get used to doing them, and you'll stop doubting yourself so much, right? Okay, so now all the tails are underneath, and you can see the loops are on top. It's just a little off to the side, so you're not looking straight down at the bow, but that's exactly what I have. The tails are underneath, and all of those little loops are in the center. And then you can decide, once you get it fluffed out how you like it, all the right direction, then you can go ahead and cut these at a slant, or you can cut them at a dovetail, totally up to you. But since I did the others at a slant, I just wanted to keep up that same theme and just use little slants here. And it makes the cutest little bow. And I think it's a little more balanced this way too. So that white one was hanging down a little more than it needed to be. You don't have to have all your tails the same length, by the way. You can go ahead and leave some long, cut some short, pull some behind the bow if you want. It's up to you. Now I'm going to get my Gorilla Glue, my Gorilla Hot Glue, and I'm going to glue the sprinkler part of this watering can right to the inside of the pail. It's going to hold it together, and I think that looks so cute. You can add flowers on here, artificial vegetables. You could put some carrots in that bucket, whatever you like. But this is how it will look. You could also, this is sort of a thin vine wreath, but you could use a grapevine wreath on this if you wanted to. Think of all the different ways you could customize this to make it your own. And if you didn't want to use the vegetable garden theme, you could certainly use any floral ribbon to do this and just put some flowers in the middle. Make it your own. Alright, so this little cup I got at the thrift store. It's got a little stamp on the bottom. It says US and then some numbers, so perhaps military, not sure. This is a Dollar Tree bucket. I've got some little blocks of concrete that came out of little Dollar Tree birthday things. Gonna need foam. I've got some daisies and dandelions. Mine came from TEMU, and so did the fern, but you can get anything, any floral you like from any place that you like. And then this is a fern pick. I've got some branches that I kept from other florals. They are thick, they're plastic on the outside, and they're wire on the inside. That's the important thing. I've got some moss that we're going to be using as well, of course. And then I think y'all know what we're going to be doing here. It's almost going to be like the teacup and the saucer with the flowers pouring out. We are going to do this a little more rustic, a little more cottage, and we're going to have our cup of flowers spilling into the bucket. How about that? So that you can see the wire on the inside here. For all the ways that I could have attached this, I thought, you know what, we're going to give this tape a test. So this is some of that, I think it's called Alien Tape from Dollar Tree, but I've actually got this roll from TEMU. You can get yours anywhere you want. It's like a gel consistency, and it's sticky on the front and the back. Comes on a roll, and you just peel one side off. It is very strong. I've used it in other projects, and I'm very happy with it. Plus, you don't have to have that dry time that you normally use. So I'm putting that on the inside and just pressing that into that gel part. I'm going to flood this really well with some Gorilla Hot Glue. And I'm going to sandwich this in between another piece of that tape going across it. So here's another piece. Cut it off, then you peel off your backing. And then I'm going to put it across very carefully because the glue is still wet. Press it down into the other piece of tape on into the side of the cup. And let me tell you, I put this aside to let it dry, and it is very strong. Very, very strong. Now you're going to need a weight in the bottom, so that's why I'm showing you that you can use those pieces, but they're actually, it's like balloon weights that you peel the stuff off of, but I'm just going to use a piece of concrete in the bottom of mine because it fits a little better. I switched over to a green foam because it actually fits perfectly into these buckets from Dollar Tree, and the foam came from Dollar Tree. Then I'll take some more foam that I had from some packaging, cut it into little pieces, and fill in those spots heightly. This way you don't have to glue that foam down because typically it's going to fall out anyway, and it will stay in place. I love that. I love that. You didn't even have to use glue and melt the foam and go through that whole process. So now I want to look at the size of my bigger stems, and I'm thinking, okay, let's go ahead and cut them down. At the time, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. Here's that cup firmly attached, and I'm going to start playing around here with the placement in the bucket. What angle I want, how far into the bucket or over the bucket I want it to be. And I do decide to move it forward. So there's going to be some little tracks in here where I have moved it forward. And you want to be sure that when you do that and you keep making holes behind it, that it doesn't fall back into those holes. Because you know how foam is. It's not self-healing. It's going to, when you put weight on it, it's going to go back, slip back into that area, right? So I'm going to show you how you can remedy that. I'm just going to take the pieces I trimmed off, put a little hot glue in there, and put them right back in those holes. How about that? And now if it leans, it's going to lean back, not into the hole, but actually over the other part of the pick. I'm going to take another piece of that tape, and I'm going to put just a slit halfway across. I'm going to wrap this around and press it into the foam. Now, I learned that trick as a nurse because when we do IVs, this is the way that we would do them. We would cut our tape this way, and it worked perfectly to hold everything in place. So I thought, let's apply it here and just give it a little extra something to hold it in place. I'm going to check my placement for the fern because I really want the fern in here. Now, like I said, I always like to try to make things my own. So rather than having a fork attach the cup or the saucer to the plate and then having little flowers only at the bottom, I thought, let's have our flowers actually maybe growing up into the cup or pouring out of the cup into a little gardeny looking area here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to get my placement for my fern because it's the biggest piece that goes in that bucket. Decide where it's going to be, and then I can go ahead and start decorating the cup. I'm using hot glue, again the Gorilla Glue, and then I'm going to use some moss on top until I get it as much in there as I like, mainly sitting toward the bottom of the cup is where I like it. Putting the moss down is going to give me something that I can glue the florals onto and know that it's going to stick better than it would if I just put it on that metal. And all I do is just cut down my pieces, you know, cut the stem off and just poke it to the side. I'm going to be adding some greenery in the cup as well. And I'm going to pluck the fern out because it doesn't need to be right there right now. It's kind of in the way. And I'll start adding down pieces. Now these little ferny looking pieces actually came off of the daisy pieces. I just pulled them off, so I'm just going to use them here. I like them. I think they're pretty, and they do look sort of like the fern. By stacking these together and putting them down this little branch, you are partly disguising the branch, but you're giving yourself more surface area to put your florals when you have those spilling out of the cup. And we want this cup to be running over, right? Have it runneth over. I'm just going to keep adding. I added some greenery to the back of the cup and just a couple more pieces here inside the cup to make it a little more balanced. These little bits of greenery came off of the dandelions already, so I just went ahead and used those. I'm going to spread it out a little bit, and then I'll add in my daisies here and there wherever I want to put them. Remember the trick, use your heat on top of the little flowers if they're bent up and ruffled up, and this will help hold everything into place and make them pop out like they are fresh and new, like they should be. And then I'll just take those and glue those onto the stem or the little greenery that we put down. Put as much or as little as you would like. You can see I added also some of the dandelion there. I'm going to flip this bucket over, support it. I'm going to support that cup. I don't want anything to get broken. And then add the flowers and the greenery on the back. Alright, so now it's all of my mechanics are covered. I love the way the daisies and dandelions looks together, and I love that they both can be wild flowers. We're going to put that fern back in and fluff it out. Remember, when you get ferns or any types of greenery really, that you need to fluff. That includes your flower picks too, especially if you're going to be having them all left together in one piece. Fluff those out. Look how wide that fern can be if you really work on it for just a moment. I've decided to cut these daisies down into more manageable pieces, and they happen to be on sprigs of 2, pretty much, I think is how I left them. And I am just going to start putting those here and there. I know you can't see me over there on the right side, but you will in a minute. And there we are. And then you can also cut these off in pieces of 1, you know, so you have individual flowers, and you can add those wherever you like. Now this is a wild looking bundle, a wild looking bunch, so I am going to have this kind of growing all over the place. You know how I like to do mine. Let's make it look like it does in nature. This is not manicured. This is very woodland and rustic and beautiful. I'll keep adding here and there. Some of the little flowers are longer than the others, and that's okay. We'll let them do their thing, let them be our little flyways. I'm going to weave them around the fern that's in there. Because, you know, the flowers want to peek their way up through into the light, right? And apparently it's filtered light if it's in there with a fern. So we want to have them peeking around the fern to get to the light. So far, so good. This is how we are looking right now, ladies and gents. I'm liking it. I always like to look at all angles and around and try to remember to show you as I go. These are from Dollar Tree. There are a couple little picks that I had left, and I chose these other than the white picks that I thought I might put in there because it matched a little better. I mean, it looked like it belonged together, you know? So I'm just going to add those in there. There's only 3 of those. I'll space them out so they all get their moment in the sun. Love the wild look of this. It's so springy. Now I'm going to grab that moss, and we'll be poking that moss in there underneath the greenery, the florals, and onto the foam on the top of that bucket. Because what we're doing essentially with this is covering up all of the foam, making this look like it's growing out of some moss. So I'm just going to take little bits and just push it in there around the stems of everything in there, so when you look down from any angle, you see the moss. So here is that beautiful piece with the moss in it and the beautiful flowers coming out of the cup. And this is the front side of it. And by the way, if you wanted to paint your cup and bucket, you can certainly use the same techniques that you used in the previous project. And then I'm going to flip it around and show you the back so you can see that it is covered there and you don't see any of that original stem that we used. I have this little box here that I got from the thrift store a while back. I've used it before. We're going to keep that foam in there. I've got some greenery pieces that look kind of springy. I don't know what you want to call this. Maybe a berry pick of some sort. This cute little ornament and a stick. Look at her little chicks, or her little ducks. We're going to use some antiquing wax and a chippy brush. I have these little branches, blooming branches, willow maybe. And then I got some of these from TEMU. They are dandelions. We're going to start off by making a pick out of this sweet little girl ornament. Now this came from TEMU. I have a big package of these, so I have several more of these. All kinds of little different pieces. You'll see those more in our spring decor. I'm just going to put that on the bag. Now, in order to cover this all up in case it is seen from a different angle, we're going to just trace it out on the white scrap paper. Very easily done. And then I'm just going to roughly put it out and glue it on the back. Nothing like watching somebody do the entire process of tracing. Okay, then we're just going to cut it out, and then when I get it ready, we can put it down on the back of that ornament. All right, little hot glue, and we're going to get it right in place. This is your friendly reminder that you are not alone. If you need someone, if you need help, if you need someone to talk to, find somebody who will listen. You are not alone. You are in my prayers every day. All right, so I'm going to add a little hot glue to the top. And this is just because she has a little hole there that you can hang the ornament with a piece of jute. But we don't need that, so I'm just going to fill it in with a little hot glue, scrape off excess so it's flat, and then use some paint that's a similar color of her bonnet and just dot that in there. And it kind of makes it disappear. Nice. We'll put her aside and we'll work on this box first. I'm just going to use the back of this cardboard. I do this all the time. I use it for hangers. I use this extra pieces of cardboard for this exact reason, so we can offload paint and waxes. Then I don't have to pay for anything. I don't have to wash anything. I can just put it straight in the trash. All right, so I always start off light. You know that. So I'm just going to start adding on to see how much color I want on here, and then I'll slowly build that color up to the warmth that I choose. Since it's a white box, it's kind of reminded me of either farmhouse, which is great if that's what you like, or it's reminded me of wintertime. So I really want to get some warmth in that wood, and by adding this wax to it, I feel like I've really aged it and made it look a little more rustic. So we're getting a little rustic here with our beautiful vintage pieces. All right, let's not forget the top of the box. You can also get little wood boxes in a smaller scale at Dollar Tree, maybe, and use those, or use something you already have that needs a little facelift. All right, set it aside and let the wax dry. While we are waiting on that, I'm going to go around, because these have like a white outline. Outline, that sounded so incredibly country. We're going to go around here and just color that with that wax, and that's going to brown it up a little bit. It's going to age it and just really make the color on the inside pop. We're going to move on to the florals and start cutting these off at a reasonable length. You can always cut them more later, but it's harder to reattach, right? Now this is so easy. I mean, it could practically go by the same holes that were already in the foam here, but I want to show you that you can just take your pieces, even with floppy wire, and cut it off, add another piece of wire to it. We're going to go to the four corners, and then I'm going to add some more in. I want to do these kind of outward. I don't want my pieces to be straight upward. I want this to be a more relaxed, rounded piece, and I'll show you how we'll accomplish that look. Now I'm going to use the dandelion in the middle. This is my tallest dandelion, and I'm going to use it to kind of help us decide how tall it's going to be, so you can get an idea how tall it will be. And then I can start adding the rest of them, also at a angle going outward. You don't have to be real precise about your angles. Just, get them in there where they look nice. And by all means, if you like all of your arrangements going straight upward, make it your own, and you can do that. But you see here how it's starting to have that kind of a domed or rounded look on top? I really like that for these little vintage style arrangements. So we're just going to continue along and place these in here. Now, I've had people ask me on some of my videos where I have used TEMU products, why I don't put the links in the description box. Well, there are a couple of reasons. The main reason is that these are not sponsored videos, and because I'm always encouraging you to use what you have and use what you can afford, or use stores that you believe in, or if you want to do all USA product, whatever, whatever the reason is, make it your own. So I don't take the time to put all that in there, because I don't want it to look like I am pushing that on anybody, if that makes sense to you. But if you ever have a question and you ever need a link to something that I have, I would be more than happy if you just leave me a comment to grab the links for you. I do it all the time for people. I don't mind it at all. So now I'm moving into the woodier pieces, which are these willow pieces. This is willow. And then look how pretty this bright pink or this fuchsia looking color is. What would you call that color? It's really pretty. We're using that in there, and it really looks great with that yellow. Really pretty. Then I'm just going to add some of the little pieces that were shorter. Add those little bunches in there. And I'm trying to sort of mimic the entire thing all the way around. So there are 4 sides, and I want it to look similar on all 4 sides, pretty much. Now underneath, I'm going to go ahead and widen it and flatten it out by adding some more of these little branches. And I'm pushing these at a very low angle. So they're sitting underneath the greenery that we used. And that greenery is boxwood greenery, and it is some that I got at the thrift store. These came out of another project that I had. So I can't link those, but you can find similar things at Dollar Tree. So feel free to go over there and grab you something. I love the little flyaway pieces, and I love the way this looks wild and natural. I don't like a well manicured floral arrangement, generally. I like it to look a little wild, and your eyes are bouncing all over the place, and there's a lot of interest. For me, that fits my personality. And see, I'm kind of flighty myself, and I'm kind of an anxious person, kind of wound a little tight. And so all of this busyness just works for me. I love it. Okay, now I'm just going to find a little spot where she would be beautiful, where we can still see her, but she's nestled down like she's in a garden. All right, so now since I didn't use green foam, if you use green foam, no worries. But if you don't, you can always take something like moss. You can use Spanish moss, reindeer moss, whatever type of moss you have. Moss you can get all the time at Dollar Tree in their little garden decor section. So you can use that to go on the inside. You can even paint your foam. That would work perfectly as well. I've done that before, and I think I actually do that in this video, so I'll show you what you can do for that situation. All right, now I'm just looking around at all the angles and seeing where the white spots are, because if I see any white spots in there, I'm going to add a little bit of that greenery to it. Because we have so many picks in there, I'm not even going to glue it down. It should stay right where it's at. This would be so pretty sitting on the end of your bar or sitting on your table. I love this. I absolutely love it. And I hope that you do too. What colors would you use? Now the bunny itself is not vintage, but we're going to make that frame look old and rusty. So these are from TEMU as well, but you can use any window cling or wall cling that you can find. It doesn't even have to be bunnies, it could be spring flowers, and you can get those at Dollar Tree. I'm going to use a frame, some white cardboard, I'm going to use school glue, some celery chalk paint, because it matches what I have in the bunny picture, and some chippy brushes. Also going to use a piece of corrugated cardboard. We're going to start. Y'all look at me, I got a new haircut. Can you see my reflection? I got short hair now, y'all. We're going to take the glass carefully and put it aside so we don't cut ourselves or break it or, you know, anything like that. Could use it on another project. Clean the frame as usual. I used a damp water wipe, and then I'm going to just use a little bit of heat on here just to dry it. Then I'm going to put my glue down in the tray. I'm just doing it like this because it's a place where I can put it and dip into it easily. That's why it looks kind of sloppy on there. I just needed a tray to put it on. I'm going to grab that brush, and I am going to put a thick layer of glue all over the place. Now with the glue, you can go back and forth, and I also added it onto there's some raised areas. So on the inside, there's a little dotted line decor around the edge, and on the outside, it's like a filigree sort of pattern on the outside. So I think this was going to be great for us to use to make this look old. And we're going to do a lot of distressing and aging to it. So yeah, I hope you like it. All right, so I've got this on here. Don't let it dry. You want to immediately go into your paint. I'm going to add the paint in the bowl, which I could have done with the glue too, but you know, hindsight. And then while that glue is still wet, I'm going to dip into that paint. I'm going to load the brush up with however much I want on there. Not too much. We want to be able to have some streaking, and I got a little heavy when I first put it down. When you put your paint down, you're going to do it lightly, and you're going to go in the same direction. You don't want to go back and forth. You want to go in the same direction and try not to touch it more than you have to. I think that's the problem I have when I'm doing a crackle paint finish is that I feel like I need it to be more even, but you don't. When things are aged and chippy, they're not even, right? Okay, I'll get over it at some point. But you see I'm going in one direction. I'm trying to make sure I get in the corners and all that. Trying to get one direction. I keep touching that top corner because it's just too heavy, but you know, it's okay. Then I'm making sure that I get the outside of the frame and right on the inside of the frame. So then I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to hold it far away from it so I don't bubble up my paint. And I'm just going to start drying it. I actually do this for a few minutes and then I'm going to put it in front of a fan while I move on. Then this is how it looks once it's dry. I've got my crackled sections, I got some heavier, some lighter, but it looks old. I really want that filigree to show again, so I'm just going to go back over that with a sanding block and just bite down right through that paint so I can still see that decorative trim that's on that outside. Y'all, I've got to have a sip of coffee. Okay, so now we're going over the dotted line on the inside because I want that to show as well. And I'm going to wipe all that chalk dust off. Now you can see the little sections. You can even see the drip I left on there, but I'm okay with that. Okay, I've decided I'm not going to put the glass back in here, so I'm just going to pull all these little tabs out. And if I wanted to use the original tabs and put it in there, the picture would be flat. What I want to do is make some dimension because we're going to add something in the bottom of this frame. So what I'm doing now is just tracing out the size of the frame onto this cardboard. And then I will cut it out with a utility knife, or you can use your scissors, but when I'm cutting cardboard that's thick with scissors, it tends to go sideways and I don't get a sharp edge. Like I went sideways right then with that blade. But the blade's a little easier. You just have to be super careful, okay? I don't want anybody losing their fingerprints, all right? If you do something wrong, I want the law to be able to find you. That's right. And that goes for glue guns too. Protect your fingers. We don't want to lose our identity. Okay, so we're just cutting through there. I flip it over and then I cut through the paper part on the other side. This does not have to be super nice because all you have to do is take a sanding block and sand off your edges or clean it up with a pair of scissors. It's going to be on the back. You're really not going to see it. Okay, so once it is ready, if we measured correctly, it should fit right on the back. I'm going to remove this hanger because I'm not going to need it. We're going to try something else for this. I'll save it though because I can use it on more pieces. Now it's going to fit with no overhang on the ends. And I have now got to trace off my piece of white paper. See, the reason I'm using white paper is because when you put on a wall cling or whatever, you can kind of see through it. It is not opaque. You can actually see through it. So I want to make sure that it pops, and in order to do that, it needs to be on white, or it would be very dull if you put it on cardboard. Does that make sense? Or if you use like a striped paper or decorative paper in the background, it would fade out. You could see it right through your print. I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to apply it right onto the white. I'm using some hot glue. I'm going to put this right on top. And then quickly, while that glue is hot, I'm going to take a little squeegee and press that out. Y'all, I have a bobo on my finger. You see that Band-Aid on my finger? You know what I did? I was walking up the stairs. Something stuck in my foot. So I reached down to grab it out of my foot, and it went into my finger. It was a piece of glass. I don't know where it came from. There's really no telling. But anyway, I cut my foot and my finger with the same piece of glass. Yeah. But that's why I have the Band-Aid on. So I'm kind of babying my finger a little bit, and I hope y'all don't get grossed out by Band-Aids and stuff because I couldn't help it. And I really wanted to finish this video. But I love y'all. You know I love you. Okay, so I'm going to peel part of the backing away. Leave some of it still on. For me, this is the easiest way to do it. But if you know another way that works, go ahead and do it that way. And I'm going to put him down. And my bunny is going to end up being a little crooked, and it drives me absolutely bonkers. Oh, no. Oh, look at his ear. I ripped his ear. Oh, I ripped his ear! Now what? We're just going to put it back on. Look at that. You have to be super careful. I would like to say that it's because I had a injury to my finger that I was not working at 100% capacity. That's what we're going to say. It was my finger's fault. It was a glass problem. That's what it was. All right, so now I'm just gonna take the little squeegee and press all this down carefully on the ear since I have already damaged it. But I'm not gonna stop. You can see a little crack there. It's hard to get it exactly lined up without overlapping, but we're just gonna go with it. It's gonna add to the vintage look, right? Now this is gonna fit great on here. I can just flip it over, use my staple gun, but you can use a good strong glue if you would like to do that, or hot glue. But I've got some shallow staples and they work really well for this. I can press down into that cardboard because it's corrugated, so it's got those little lines in it. I can press straight down into it. It's not going to damage anything, and it'll hold this all in place. Nice, nice. And it's really not heavy because that's not really wood. It's like a resin, I guess. So you can stop there if you would like. But I thought, since he's a little crooked, maybe if we added something in the bottom and kind of level out the landscape, you won't notice as much that he's kind of crooked. Y'all might not even notice it, but I do. It drives me insane. Okay, so now we have an area gap in there, if you will, of about 1/4 inch where we can add stuff to it and tuck the edges right into the frame itself. See there how I'm tucking it in? I'm going to just take that moss, put it on there, and just push it down with my fingers. You can use leaves here, you can use flowers here, underneath anything that you put in here. If you use flowers, you can make some stems with sticks and make like a 3D, floral right in the frame. It would be so pretty, I think. Just do it your way. These videos are for your inspiration. Alright, so since we use this in the floral arrangement, I thought, why don't we use some of this in here for him? He's actually munching on a leaf, so let's give him a little grassy area to be in. Bunnies don't like necessarily to be out in the wide open if they can help it. They're always nervous and looking around and twitching their tails and their ears, so let's give him a little shelter here so he doesn't feel so anxious while he's having his meal. And he might even be eating some of this willow. Who knows? I'm hiding the branches down in there. I'm giving it a variety of height in these just for interest. It's such a fun little project. And again, because this frame has the vintage look, I'm calling this a vintage, but if you have some type of a printout or a bunny that's vintage looking and you put in a frame that is distressed like this, I think that would really sell the look. So this is such an easy hanger, and I use this all the time because when you use a string like this, you can move it back and forth to make sure that you get it exactly at the right, I guess I want to say level, so that it's leveled so it is not like crooked on your wall. You can slide it back and forth on your hook or your nail, whatever you have there. Yeah. I love that sweet bunny. This is a little stand that I got from Hobby Lobby. And these are some greenery pieces. I've got a little thrifted piece of flower, and then I have these little flowers. Some crocus yellow paint in a brush. Beautiful yellow. This little rifted basket, I'm not even sure what these are used for, but here's the measurements at any rate. And you could use a teacup or a little bowl. And then this really pretty trim with the beads. And look at this little precious girl. Look at her. Now, she's got little ducks too, but all I had was a little chick, but I thought, you know what, we can get away with it. We're going to use the chick. Here's a little piece of white foam. I love to use my foam scraps. I always like to save them. So I'm going to take this really pretty yellow. It reminds me of like the banana saltwater taffy. That's the color. I don't know if it's coming across like that to you, but that's the color of it. It's very pretty. I'm going to color the whole thing on the outside. Just one coat of paint. Doesn't need any more than that. And then right on the inside, I'm going to do yellow right on the inside where the little scallops are. Now the foam doesn't have to be glued in. After it's dried, you can just press that foam right in there. Nice. I'm going to take a little bit of this green paint just to show you, you can add some green paint. This stuff is thick, thick paint. It's a new bottle too. And then go over it with a brush. I'm not even going to go all the way to the outside. Let it dry though. Now, I am going to do the same process. I'm going to fill in that hole with hot glue, let it dry, and I'll take a little purple paint and just dot that right in that little opening. Let it dry. Okay, when your pieces are dry, we can decide, do we want it this way or do we want it this way? And I really like the idea of flipping it upside down and using this as a little pedestal. And these are, I guess, like a little cupcake riser. You know, you get them seasonally at Hobby Lobby with the dishes and things, and they're not expensive. I like to get mine when they're on clearance. And sometimes I can find them at the thrift store. So just a little hot glue. This is not heavy. It won't be a heavy arrangement. If you're going to give it as a gift, I recommend that you do use some E6000 or some type of a super glue so that it stays in place. And you might also want to glue down your piece of foam as well if you're going to give it as a gift, in case it gets knocked over. All right, so I'm going to take this pretty little foam and ribbon, and I'm going to go over the edges of the bottom of this because I don't want those the little pieces where you connect the basket together, or the little slits that are there. I don't want those necessarily to show in this. So if I do it this way, I can cover those up, and it also gives me just the tiniest bit of ruffle on the edge. So rather than this being just scalloped on the top, it almost gives it a little scallop on the bottom. I'm not using a lot, and protect your fingers because this is hot glue and this is a ribbon that has hollowed out areas in it. But how pretty with the little pearl beads in there. Really sells that vintage look in my opinion. Alright, when we get back around, we'll just trim it off. And because I used just little slits and didn't go in a circle around, I can adjust it if it's not straight. And I did get a little bump of green on there. Fix it with some white paint, not a problem. Then I'm going to decide how tall I want my little greenery basket to be. And then I'll work with that height. These pieces I got, these were from, maybe from the Amazon, I think it's like an Amazon overstock type of thing. There's a store called Dirt Cheap that I frequent. I love the store because they have closeout bargain prices. And they're also, some of them have stores where they sell Amazon overstock. Yeah. So I got a huge box of these for like, it might have been the day that it was like $2. My daughter found them. We like to go together with my grandson. And yeah, we find all kinds of greenery and pretty stuff in there. And I go through the greenery. Y'all know I do. Okay, so you can see how I've done it. We've got a rounded edge, and this one's kind of upward a little bit more than the other one. Because it's small, I want it to have that. I don't want it to take up a lot of room. Because I'm thinking in an arrangement like this, it's another situation where if you have a small space and you want to give a little gift of sunshine to somebody that you love, perhaps in the hospital, nursing home, maybe a secretary or someone who works in an office that doesn't have a lot of space, but you just want to give them a little bit of sunshine in that little dark fluorescent light room, then this is a great way to do it. You're not going to take up a lot of space, doesn't cost a lot of money, and the sentiment is so sweet, right? Even if they're fake flowers. I mean, some hospitals won't allow live flowers anyway, or live plants, so consider that too. So I'm just going to add these in, and these are not in any particular order. I'm just poking them here and there. This is not symmetrical. I'm also adding in a little more greenery where I feel like I want it. Keeping in mind that the seam of that basket needs to be in the back. I don't want that showing in the front. And then the greenery that came off of those beautiful little, it almost looks like clover, doesn't it? The little clover flowers, like red clover, it almost looks like that. Okay, just added them here and there. Love this purple and yellow together, and it reminds me of pansies in springtime. So I painted the back of her yellow, and I'm using a yellow stick. There we go. So if you don't want to use the other technique where you put the paper on the back, you don't have to. She's going to be hidden down in there. She's going to be kind of nestled in. I'm going to use a furniture repair marker to age this. So if you don't have Waverly wax, you can get 3 packs of furniture repair markers at Dollar Tree. And they are permanent, so be very careful how you place them. You're not going to have the freedom of moving it around like you would a wax. But if you just dot it on, you can really make a difference to get that white edge off and to make your items look a little more aged. So I'll show you in just a moment. Doesn't that look better? I think that looks better. And then I'm going to place her down in here. Cut the stick if you need to so you don't, puncture anything. But look how cute she is. She is a precious little thing. Yes, indeed. All right, now I can take that little chick. I got the wire pushed in and then turned at an angle. The little hot glue holding it in place. I'm just going to find a little place for this little chick to nest. I wish I had a little duck, but all I had was a little chick. I'm going to put her in there and add a couple of leaves. Just kind of glued them down so it looks like she's standing in the leaves. Look at it from all sides. If you need to move something around, you can move it around. Yeah, this would make a really cute gift. So super sweet. So here are those 3 pieces together. We have the gift idea, very small, very cute, doesn't take a lot of time to do it. And you could actually use scrap ribbons, scrap flowers, as long as they're in a springy color, if you're going to be giving it in the springtime, for a little bit of additional joy in somebody's day. We aged up this frame, added a little dimension to the bottom of it, a little extra something down there. And then there's the box, looking all rustic and vintage. And look at her with her little bonnet on. She is precious. And you could actually use these on into Easter as well. Love it. If you enjoyed what you've seen in this video today, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. If you enjoyed the content also, I would love it if you could share the video and to give it a thumbs up. All these things that you do help my channel tremendously and helps it to grow so that I can help you to grow on your crafting journey. Thank you for all the happy mail I've been getting recently from my subscribers. It has been so sweet and so welcome. Thank you so much. I'd also like to thank you for stopping by today, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.